Get this thing going. Again, welcome. For those that just got here, my name is Mark Wagner. I'm the president of Future 500 ID Camps. We are glad you're here. We're glad your sons are here. We hope they have a great week. And we hope that this seminar is very informative for all of you. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, we anticipate that the seminar will go for about 2 hours. About an hour through that, we will take a quick break, have some light refreshments out there for everyone, and then we will get back in. We'll get into part two. So basically, let me give you a little bit of an idea how it's going to break down. We're going to have three different presentations to start. Okay, we are going to start with some information on standardized testing. About 50%. You guys might find this statistic interesting. About 50% of all of the soccer players that are here have signed up for either the SAT, PSAT, or ACT, the full practice exam. One of the reasons why we started doing that a couple of years ago is because the results show that taking the exam multiple times helps to boost score. And so we felt it was worthwhile, even in the guise of a camp, and trying to squeeze and make it all work, to do that. And so Tom Johnson's going to be talking with you a little bit from Kaplan about standardized testing. So that's where we're going to start. The second thing that I want you to know is that we've done something this year. We've not done it before. And the idea is simply this. And hey, you know, if you've called us on the phone, if you've talked with me, if you've talked with a person by the name of Linda Wagner, I'll connect the dots. That would be my wife. She is one of the best customer service people on the planet. She's also an awesome wife. I'm a lucky guy. And one of the things that you've probably noticed if you've spoken with us on the phone is that we're crazy honest. We've told people not to come to this camp, that it wasn't the right camp for them. There's other good camps that are out there too. There's a particular fit that we think this camp's good for. One of the things that we've been very honest in letting people know is not 100% of the kids that attend this camp are going to get recruited as a result of attending this camp. That may not sound like the greatest sales pitch in the world, but I'm an honest guy. And so what we've tried to do with all of Future 500, and it also impacts the seminar, is to make sure that there are multiple different things that everyone benefits from. So I'm clear. We think a lot of people will get recruited as a result of being here at this camp. A lot. We've tried to be pretty careful with the matrix of colleges that we've brought in so that it appeals to a very broad group of players at the soccer, at the ability level, and also at the academic level. We've been pretty careful how we've selected what we have selected. One of the things that we wanted to do was to bring in a company that could shoot video of all of our matches, all of our 11-a-side matches that will happen throughout this camp. And that's soccerrecruits.com. All of our fields have scaffolding. It's high elevated, high def quality film, and it's an opportunity for people to be able to turn around, whether you get recruited or whether you don't, to be able to use that as another way to help people know about your son. So Jordan is going to speak about that for a little bit after Kaplan. And then Tony Carnahan, and I'll introduce him. He's got a pretty cool background, and I'll give you a little bit more on it in a little while. But I don't think you can really have many people with this very different experience and understanding of different levels of players, academically and soccer-wise, and to have been very, very good at mentoring and helping them to move on to the right colleges for them. He's been doing it for years. He's got a phenomenal reputation, and we're really honored that he would be here today as well. And so Tony will finish up the first phase of what we do. We'll then take a break, and then from there, kind of switch gears a little bit. And I'm going to be kind of like Mr. I don't know, microphone MC guy or something. I'm going to ask a bunch of questions, maybe tell a couple of really stupid jokes, because that's all the better I can do. And then these guys we're gonna really ultimately turn it over to all of you to ask any question that you want to ask. Okay. So first we are going to start out with Tom Johnson. Okay. And just a bit of a background on Tom. Tom has been working for Kaplan for about 2 years as both a teacher and a tutor, and he also mentors new Kaplan faculty. Before that, Tom taught math in Philadelphia for 4 years. He has a bachelor's degree in math from Scranton. He has a master's in teaching from Seattle University, and he has also worked in London as a learning support assistant. Tom spoke here last year, did a really good job, actually taught me a number of different things that I didn't know. And so I'd like to welcome Tom to the podium. Thanks.
So I know that most of you are primarily here for soccer. So we'd like to get the non-soccer thing out of the way first, so that's what I'm doing. But as Mark mentioned, it is a very important part of the college process, whether you're an athlete or not. So we'll try to keep it a little bit more brief than we usually do, about 20 minutes. So here's our agenda. We're going to look at the 3 different tests, how they are similar and how they are different. I'll also teach you one strategy to give you an example of what it is that Kaplan would be teaching a student who takes our course. And then at the end, I'll talk about what it is that Kaplan offers in terms of how to help students study. As I'm going through this presentation, I want you to be thinking about the answers to these questions because they can all affect what tests you're taking at any given point, or if you're deciding between the ACT and the SAT. Also, I want you to be thinking about your target schools. If you stopped with me at the table outside, I gave you a handout that had a list of nationally popular schools and scores that are typically accepted the scores that freshmen who are accepted typically get going to those schools. I'll have more of those after the presentation if you're interested. So the first thing to know when we look at the tests themselves is how they fit into the college admissions process. They are not the number one thing that colleges look at. We're not that arrogant at Kaplan to think that we're that important. The first thing they look at is the strength of your curriculum. Did your son choose harder classes over easier classes? What sort of classes are required at the high school that your son goes to? Those sorts of things. Are they relevant to a college education? The next thing they look at is typically admission scores. Now, notice the PSAT is not on here. We'll get to that in a second. But AP and subject tests are becoming more and more popular required components of the college admissions process. That's fairly recent of a development. The next thing they look at is your high school GPA. Now, let's just put this in context for a second. Everything your son did for 4 years counts less than what he does in 4 hours on one day. Seems a little bit unfair, and the reason for that is the word standardized. When you take a standardized test, anyone who reads the results knows exactly how to compare that to other people who took the standardized test. GPAs are not the same. Some GPAs are weighted, some have a 5.0 scale for honors classes, some schools, like the high school I went to, a 97 was an A, other schools a 90 is an A, so they don't really know how to compare them as well, which is one of the reasons why they're sort of taken with a grain of salt. So the PSAT is not part of your college admissions process, but I know that there are a fair amount of rising sophomores at this camp, or even rising juniors, for whom the PSAT is relevant. It's obviously a practice run for the real thing, for the SAT. The ACT equivalent is called the PLAN test, so if your son has taken that, that's the equivalent of the PSAT. As Mark alluded to, people who take standardized tests more often generally score higher. That's not rocket science to figure out, but there is data to back that up. The same goes true for the PSAT feeding into the SAT. Those who take the PSAT are more likely to score higher. And there you have the numerical average there of the increase, which is not insignificant. There's also some money involved for students who are able to score high enough in the on the PSAT. Even if you don't get money out of it, though, it still looks good on your college application to say you were a commended scholar or a finalist. This is very tiny, but this is some information that I can share with you later that we're going to skip for right now about the type of money that's available and how many students can earn it. We're going to skip this one for right now for the sake of time, but this also is very tiny. This is the score report that you'll receive when you take a PSAT. The important thing to note is how the score in the PSAT column compares to the score in the SAT column. Basically, they give you a predictor score. So in this example, it says the 11th grade PSAT score is 45 to 49. That projects to a 420 to 560 in reading, a 420 to 560 in math, and a 420 to 570 in writing. So it's just to give you an indication of what they should score going into the SAT before they take it. That's how you should interpret the scores. This is what the structure of the SAT looks like, and we're going to compare this to the ACT in a second. There are 10 total sections. It's just with the breaks included. There are 3 5-minute breaks. That's a total of 4 hours. You have the averages there on the side. It's out of 2,400. No longer is it out of 1,600 like when most of us took it. Also, there are now grid-in questions in the math section. You'll see there in the top middle column. They're different in the way that they're scored from the multiple choice questions, which is why we bring attention to them. The scoring for the SAT is not something that a lot of students know going into the test, but it's extremely important because it affects the way you take the test. Before they convert it to that mysterious 2,400 scale, they compute a raw score. For everything you get right, you get 1 point. For everything you leave blank, you get 0, but for every multiple choice question that you get wrong, there's a penalty of 1/4 of a point. The reason has to do with probability and canceling out the effect of guessing. And it is going away. They're doing away with the penalty in the new revision that's coming out in 2016. That will only affect students who are rising sophomores. So if your son is a rising junior, or senior, this will not affect him. The way it affects the way you take the test, though, is that you should not guess if you have no idea what the answer is. If you're running out of time and you can't even you don't have time to read the question, you shouldn't just fill in anything because you're more likely to incur a penalty. The only time you should guess is if you can say, well, for sure I know A is wrong, but I don't know about the other 4. Then you've increased your odds and you should guess. So that's one thing that your son should know going into taking the test. Here's what the ACT looks like. One of the biggest differences is that there's only one section per topic. There's only one math, one reading, one English, and so forth. They are longer sections, though. They're anywhere from 35 to 45-ish minutes. It's also slightly shorter, with an optional essay at the end. Brings it to about 3.5 hours. We recommend that students treat the essay as not optional, and the reason is because if you say, okay, the school I'm applying to doesn't require the essay, I'm not going to take it. Fine. Then you decide later to change your mind and say, well, I really do want to apply to this other school, and they do require the essay. You cannot just go and take an ACT essay. You have to go and resit the entire exam. So we recommend that students just buckle down and take the essay. No one really wants to write an essay after 3 hours of taking multiple choice questions, but we recommend that they do so. Okay, the scoring is similar, but there is no penalty for wrong answer choices on the ACT. So every question should be filled in, whether you have time to read it or not. Every question should be filled in. So that's something your child should know. Your score report. Just out of curiosity, how many of you, you or your son signed up for the tests that are going to be administered here as part of the camp? Okay, so for those people who signed up, you'll be receiving a score report in about 7 to 10 days after the test, and this is what it looks like. You'll get a snapshot with these bars up here of the overall results, and then on subsequent pages we'll break down the topics that were tested in each category so you can see more specifically how your son did in those particular topics. The ACT is very similar. The only difference is that there's an extra section. So there's a science section that wasn't on the SAT. But the way it's broken down is very, very similar. We're going to skip ahead now to the differences between the tests. I just mentioned there's a science section on the ACT that is not present on the SAT. This can highlight a strength of your son if he is good at science. It is not a reason to avoid the test, however, if your son is not good at science. The math most of the math on both tests only goes up through Algebra 2. However, the ACT has 4 trigonometry questions, very basic trigonometry, but sine, cosine, and tangent questions. On the SAT, the essay is required and it is first, whereas on the ACT it's optional and last. And as I've mentioned, there's a time difference. Here are some myths about the test though, and especially in the Northeast, because the Northeast is the last region of the country where the ACT has really started to be used. The SAT is an IQ test. This is not true. This is a myth. A lot of people think of it that way, and it's simply not true. It is a reasoning test. The A in SAT stands for aptitude, so it's really an aptitude test. Another myth is that people think the ACT is easier. It's for people who can't hack it on the SAT, which is completely false, and the data backs this up completely. About a third of students do better on the SAT, a third do better on the ACT, and a third do about the same. So there's no inherent advantage, and colleges know that. I've already addressed this one. Here's another myth that we get from a lot of people, especially in the Northeast. There is, at this point, there are almost about 90% of schools in this country accept standardized tests as part of their application process. All of those that we know of, except for one, accept both tests. The only school that we know of that does not take both tests is, let me make sure I get this right, the Webb Institute of Naval Engineering in New York. So the Webb Institute for shipbuilding, there it is, for shipbuilding in New York. So if your son is interested in building ships for the Navy, then you need to take the SAT. Okay, I'm going to teach you one strategy that we would teach in a course in the math section. It's called back solving. The name kind of gives it away. You're going to take advantage of the fact that it's a multiple choice test. The answer is already in front of you, you simply have to find it. You don't have to generate your own answer except on those gridding questions. We're going to start with C, and I'll explain why in a second. When you use this strategy is on any question that asks you for a specific value. Not all questions do. Sometimes ask for an expression involving variables, so you can't use this then. And when the answer choices are simple numbers. If there's an answer like 54, great, that's simple. If there's an answer like 38 and 3/16, that's not a good type of answer to use this question or use this technique on. So here's the question. Of the participants at a certain conference, a third are vets, half are zoologists, and the remaining 12 are trainers. Each participant specializes in only one field. What is the total number of participants at the conference? So we're being asked for a specific number. All of these numbers are integers, they're easy to work with, so we can use back solving. We're going to start with C, and the reason is because it is the middle answer choice. The answers are in numerical order, so 60 is the middle option. Now when we try out 60, we see that, that slide seems to have been cut. If you try out 60, you'll end up with 20 veterinarians, 30 zoologists, and 12 trainers. That adds up to 62, which was not the 60 we were looking for. So we know that 60 is wrong. Not only do we know that 60 is wrong, but because the answers are in order, we know that everything below 60 is wrong, because we ended up with 62, which was higher. So since 60 was too small, we know that A, B, and C are all out. So in one step, we've eliminated over half of the answer choices. That's why this method is so powerful. So now we look at 72. You all knew that a third of 72 is 24, off the top of your head, I'm sure. More of you probably knew that half of it was 36. And then the 12 trainers, that adds up to 72, so there's our answer. So that's how back solving works, and that's one of the techniques that we teach. It's all about being efficient while you are taking the test. That's generally how our methods go. That's part of a larger method called, just that we call the Kaplan method for math. We teach each student to ask themselves these questions while they're answering each question. It's a short checklist that just makes sure that you are staying, keeping things very procedural and not getting lost in your own thoughts while trying to suss out what the problem is asking. We'll skip this problem for the sake of time. And we are going to skip over to what it is that Kaplan does. So while I'm talking about this, I want you to be considering these things right here: your goals, your timeline, the schedule, and your learning preference. A lot of people don't think about that one when they think about test prep. So we have three basic options. Online self-study, which actually is normally $300, but you have access to it for free because you signed up for this camp. And I have the access codes for those. If you didn't already stop at our table, I have the access codes for that after the presentation. You can also do it with a class with a teacher like me, or with a tutor like me also. Everything that we do is data-driven. So in the online portal, whatever you sign up to do with us, you'll have access to an online portal, and you'll be able to check in on your son's progress as he is studying for the exam. And the tutors and teachers use it as well to help guide their instruction. I've already mentioned that this is free because you signed up for the camp. Our classes are generally 10 sessions long, 4 full-length practice tests, and 6 strategy sessions. That never really changes with the classes. It's usually once or twice a week. We're offering many of them during the summer, and I have some sample schedules for those of you who live in the area. There's also an unlimited prep called Prep Trio, if you would like to take multiple courses before graduation. And also, as part of signing for this camp, if you do end up signing up for tutoring and you mention that you were at this camp, you can receive a 10% discount. If you have questions, I will be here as part of the Q&A panel, but if you have questions later after you leave, this is the contact information of Greg Schrader, the business developer who works with this camp, his number and his email. Obviously, this won't be up here the whole time, so you can ask me for it later, but I'll be happy to share that with you.
I'll duck if you need to be able to see that. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks, Tom. I'll try to refrain from really bad jokes because I can get them going pretty good. And the longer I sit, and the problem sitting is probably why I'm a coach, they get even worse. So a lot of them going through my brain right now. And I'm gonna try to be good. Tom, thank you. I appreciate it. Next is going to be Jordan Evans with soccerrecruits.com, and I'm going to kind of set this one up a little bit for a moment or two because I think it's important that I do. We have a recommended strategy through T3 Soccer and then through Future 500. We'll get into it a little bit more, I'm sure, in the Q&A with our coaching panel. And oh, by the way, I didn't introduce the coaches yet in the interest of time, so hope you guys don't take offense to that. I'm going to do that after the intermission. But I'll just simply say we have St. Lawrence, UMass, and Millersville. These guys are awesome, and we've known them all for quite a while, so it's pretty cool to have them with us. But we'll introduce them further in a little while. So, but I want to talk for just a minute or two. I'm not going to get into a lot of strategy. We will after the intermission. Future 500 has a pretty, if you read any of the blogs on our website, got a pretty strong philosophy and practical thought process out as to how to, I'm going to use the word markets because it's what all of you think. And then I'll put it into a different term, and that is, how do you help get your son to be seen and known by colleges in an environment that's very cluttered. Technology has cluttered the recruiting environment massively. It's cluttered it for you as parents. It's cluttered it for us as coaches. And it's hard to know how to filter through the noise. Okay? We're going to talk about that a little bit later on. How do you filter through the noise? My guess is Tony's probably going to talk about it some too. Okay? It's a noisy environment. Our simplest recommendation, I'll call it old school, and it's where soccerrecruits.com becomes old school using technology. Okay? Our recommendations are really simple one at the end of the day. We don't recommend recruiting services, so I'm not going to name any of them, but I'm going to tell you right now my philosophy, if I'm just brutally honest, which I'm known for, is if you're doing recruiting services, sorry, maybe at some point one of them will sue me for saying it. I think you're paying money to not get recruited. That's what I think of recruiting services. All right, so there you heard it from me first. Okay? What these guys have done is they've turned around and they shoot crazy high quality video, but then they've created this platform. And our strategy is this: get to know the colleges that you're truly interested in. What's their majors? What's the size of the college? What's their geographic location? Maybe even what system do they play? What's the philosophy of the coach? Get to know it and narrow down. And then as you're writing to colleges, have a cover letter that's really detailed to that program. You don't say dear coach or you or whatever. It's very specific. This is why I am interested in your college. And it's not your college, it's Michigan, St. Lawrence, it's Millersville, it's UMass. Coach by name, college by name, major they have, how they did in their conference, everything. So that a coach knows you're legitimately interested because you've done your homework. That's your cover letter. The next thing you do is you put together a resume that makes it easy for them to know a little bit about you. Okay? What these guys have really done is turned around and just done a resume in a very intelligent and simple electronic format that makes it easy for player and coach to interact with one another. It's the simplest way that I can put it. Some of you probably have talked with Jordan as he's been out there. So Jordan's going to come up and talk for a couple of minutes. Jordan and I talked about the idea of death by PowerPoint. And so he's not going to death by PowerPoint. We've got a couple of PowerPoints. I just don't even see so many of those things. And so he's not going to do a PowerPoint. But let me just tell you a couple things about Jordan before he comes up. He's from Chester, Virginia. His youth club was the Richmond Kickers. In 2009, he was 2009 NCAA and ACC champion. I think this was pretty cool. In 2009, he was the ACC Finals MVP. So I think it's probably safe to say he's got a bit of ball in him. He can play a bit. So we tried to get him out on the field yesterday, but some field hockey group was out there. We couldn't do it. So he probably would have done that well too. So signed a 2-year professional contract with the Richmond Kickers in the USL. He's the first homegrown player to sign professionally. He's done extensive research on the use of video for NCAA programs, and their company's produced over 3,000 highlight reels to date. So I'll simply say this: we're pretty selective with who we align with. We've aligned with Kaplan. We've aligned with Adidas. Obviously, everyone knows who they are. And strategic decision to align with soccerrecruits.com. You're going to be hearing a lot more about them in the next couple of years and some of the things that they're working on. So, Jordan, come on up.
Hello. I'm going to keep this brief. Probably less than 10 minutes. I just want to give you guys a rundown of basically what we can do. I know a number of you I've had a chance to speak with today. Some of you have already signed up. I really appreciate it. We're going to help you out as much as possible, and you're in good hands. Just a little bit more about what we're doing and and what I'm doing and why we're here. In a nutshell, we are filming every 11v11 game that's going to happen through Sunday. So any game that your son plays in that's a full field game will be filmed by Soccer Recruits. We have scaffolding set up, we have high-res HD cameras, we have professional crew, and we are going to be filming every piece of footage from the 11v11 standpoint, inclusive of any all-star games that your son might be potentially selected for. I'm not going to sell you on signing up with us. Straightforward, we have 3 options. It's going to be a film-only package, a membership package that is included with Soccer Recruits on 2 levels, and that's it. So if you guys have any interest, come up and talk to me. I don't want to make this a sales pitch. Come talk to me. I'm happy to answer any questions. Send me an email, give me a call. I have enough energy to stay busy, and I promise you I'm doing that. So, I just want to let you guys know that you guys are very, very aware of, or likely aware of, a couple other recruiting services that we actually were founded and launched as a response to. We are a soccer-specific platform, laser-focused in soccer. Every employee we have is a former college soccer player, former athlete, and we have taken a lot of the criticism that has been surrounding other organizations that might look similar to us from a profile standpoint and tried to make a cleaner, less branding, opportunistic approach to getting your son in front of college coaches. Specifically in regards to a profile that you would have with Soccer Recruits, what we do is provide you with the assistance to get your profile set up, a very clean page. Again, happy to walk you guys through this if you haven't seen it already. But I think the biggest thing for us, to kind of piggyback off of what Mark said, is customization. There's no functionality within any sort of site with Soccer Recruits that allows you to blast email every college coach in the country. You have access to reach out to every Division I, II, or III college coach in the country, but it has to be on a customized individual basis. So what I mean by that is we have a system where when you basically reach out to a college coach through Soccer Recruits, you're going to have a message system that's set up exactly like an email, because that's what it is. It's going to come directly from your son's email or the parent email that you send it from, without a Soccer Recruits branding opportunity, without brought to you by, this is an official, I'm not going to name the other companies, because we know how some of us feel about them. The email comes directly from you, and essentially what it's going to do is provide exactly what you say, why you're interested in the school, what formation you like, the coaching staff, the team, even more granular, the position that you play, and knowing players on the team, what positions they play, when they're graduating, when you actually might see the field. Anything like that from the information I've gathered from a lot of the coaches that we polled before we even launched the website is very effective. So customization. Once you send that email, the only thing that they will see is a link to click on it, which will direct them to the profile. What that can do is highlight exactly what that video that we will be filming here, that will be right on your profile. It's arguably the most highlighted point. Basically, from the video standpoint, you can get a highlight reel done, keep it very simple, or you can upload raw footage through Soccer Recruits and through your profile. But really what we want to do is provide you access to get in front of these college coaches without annoying them. That's where a lot of these things fall short. You're sending a coach 10 emails with the same thing through recruiting service with some guy that you don't even know who you're dealing with is saying this is the best program for you. Frankly, maybe it has worked for someone that you know or whatever the case may be, but it's not the most effective way to get your son recruited. With us specifically, I'm up here telling you that you'll know who you're dealing with because you're actually going to be dealing with me and no one else. Any consultation, any sort of questions you have will go directly through me. We don't outsource anything. We've built this technology from the ground up. The biggest part of our team as a technology company is our developers. We took everything that we knew to be a outdated, overzealous, just let's do volume over quality, and we've made it different. Like I said, I want to keep this short. Any questions that you have at the panel, I'll be here through Sunday, and we'd love to get to know all you guys and hope that we can help at some point. Thank you.
He's taller than me. All right, so I said I wouldn't be me with all my thoughts that are just kind of going all over the place. I had a couple when I was hearing Jordan speak. Are you guys a recruiting service? Thank you. All right, the one that was really going on for me is kudos to these guys because they're sitting here and you don't always realize it. It's really bright and it's somewhat hot. And so the thing that I was trying to figure out is, like, are we all getting a tan as we're sitting there with all those lights? That's what was going through my brain. I think I know the answer is no, but that's what was going through my brain, so I thought I'd share with you for a moment. They'll get worse as the day goes on. So, all right. So next, I'm going to introduce Tony Carnahan. Tony is with YSC Academy and Coastal College Counseling. Some of you from maybe around the East Coast, or maybe the Pennsylvania area, YSC is a group, Tony, you'll like this, that got bought by some guy that's, I don't know, like the Roman Abramovich of like the Eastern United States. He's got more money than any human being should be allowed to have, I think. So the cool thing is he loves soccer. And the things that he has done to develop soccer in Pennsylvania and really beyond, and the vision that he has for all the good that is soccer, I think. The guy's name is Richie Graham, by the way. He's just done some really cool things. One of the most recent things that they've done is to start an academy, a school, where, and it's I think, and Tony may talk about it a little bit, you can be a really high-level player. There's a ton of really high-level players that are there, and there's guys that aren't maybe quite as high-level players. All of them are receiving an unbelievably high-level education. And so when we say YSC Academy, we're not actually talking in the moment about their like developmental academy teams. We're talking about their school that Tony is very, very heavily involved in counseling. The bottom line is, if you know anything about Richie Graham, he doesn't bring anybody but the best. And so that speaks volumes about Tony just from that. So Tony's been serving students as a college counselor for nearly 15 years. Most recently, he has served as an independent educational consultant with Ivy Educational Services in Scotch Plains, New Jersey, managing the counseling staff and advising students and families on the college search application and financial aid processes. Tony has also served as director of college counseling at St. Benedict's Prep in Newark, New Jersey for a decade, where he was also a member of the soccer coaching staff. If anybody doesn't know St. Benedict's, it's just pretty much just going with who's the #1 team ranked in the country, and it's a lot of times it's them. So pretty good place to be hanging out, I think. So he's never sent me any players, so maybe we should invite them. So Tony graduated from the University of Scranton, so we got another Scranton grad here in 1997 with a BA in history, where he was also named Regional American and team captain for the men's soccer team. Upon graduation, Tony spent 2 years completing his MEd in school counseling at the University of Buffalo, while also serving as an assistant coach with the men's soccer team. Tony, come on up. Thanks for coming. One moment on a PowerPoint switch here.
Feel free at any point to shout out a score if there is one. There is a score? 0-0. Shout out while I'm talking to get a chance to see the game.
Can anyone believe Spain, by the way? I watched them play down in DC and I never would have predicted this would have happened.
Thanks for that intro. I'll too try to be brief, although brevity is not really one of my strong suits. So I'm going to work hard to stay brief because it's really important for you guys to get a chance to ask some questions to this really knowledgeable panel. Just a quick follow-up on who I am and what I do right now. YC Academy is just a couple years old. It's the first school in the United States affiliated with a professional team. That's the Philadelphia Union. Although, like Mark said, we're open to players of all levels, and we have those there with us right now. Currently, I'm doing college counseling there, but also doing academic planning and admission stuff and things like that. Small school, you get to wear a lot of hats, so it's really one of the fun things about being at a small independent school. I also have a college counseling company where I meet privately with students and families on the college application search process, as well as some recruiting work as well for student athletes. So that's just a little bit about me. Here are kind of my 5 goals of the process with any student and student athlete. First, for parents, calm it down. Limit or potentially end the anxiety that has really grown amongst and around this college search and application process. Much of it driven by rankings and things like that. It's our job as counselors to really work with you, the parents and students, through the process. Second goal, empower students. Really teach them to take control. One of my taglines is helping students help themselves. So really letting them drive this process, whether that's from the recruiting standpoint and really teaching them how to work for proactive recruiting rather than reactive recruiting, to really understanding what different schools have to offer them. Talking to families about consumerism and what different schools have to offer. I look at this as not a 4-year investment, but more like a 40 or 50-year investment for a student and a family. And that's why we need to really work on that idea of consumerism. For me personally, the opportunity to relay information. I've visited about 500 colleges over the last 10 years and talk with admissions officers regularly about the trends that they see in the admissions processes, both at their schools, but also amongst their applicants. So my ability to relay that information to families and students. And then for me, probably the key to the whole process is finding the best fit. The right place, not the best place. A lot of times, again, coming back to that idea of the rankings, people are often looking for the best or highest ranked school, not even knowing how those rankings are created. If you did know, you'd probably steer away from them just like I do. So we talk a lot about finding the right place, and that's where, again, like some of the other guys mentioned, it's a really individualized process. Just one last thing to follow up on that. There's 3,500 schools in the country. So I'm also really, really confident that there's not only one good school for each student. In fact, I'm really confident that students can go to, 10s and 20s and 30s numbers of schools and have a really, really positive experience there. It's just our ability to really try to open their minds to those things. Some really basic ideas for the search process: location, setting, size, and then total cost of attendance. some really basic things that we like to walk through with students. And for student athletes, we do what's called kind of a parallel list process, right, where we will walk through some of these basics and academic ideas, and we'll also walk through it on the soccer or any other athletic team that they're looking to play on side of things, and we'll see where those things intersect. And then that's what helps us start to create that list of schools that might really work for the student and student athlete and the family for that matter. Okay. Academic factors that play a part in this search process. First and foremost, the academic climate of the school. Is it competitive or collaborative? And how would each student react to that? What's their major of choice or their interest? Latest number that I saw is 80% of students change their major at least once at the college level. And then what does that then send you to? Does that make you a 5-year college student as opposed to a 4-year? Does it make you have to change schools? So really talking more about, from my standpoint, interests and strengths as opposed to just pure majors. Type of curriculum offered. Some of the guys, some of the coaches can even talk about this because there's some varied curriculum that are up here. Is it a core, or what type of core curriculum do they have? And how will a student react to that? Is it a flexible curriculum? There might still be a core, but you can take any number of courses within a subject area. Or is it open? That flex core is what a lot of schools are going to these days. Or is it an open curriculum, schools that really give students the opportunity to take whatever they want and really try to find their way themselves. We talk a lot about learning styles of students as well and how that fits into the search process. In fact, we do a learning styles inventory with each of our students to really talk our way through how that translates to the college academic piece. So if you're better off with one-on-one discussions and small group discussions, and that's where you felt more comfortable, yet you go to large state university and get thrown into a lecture hall like this in your intro to psych class, and no one knows who you are. What's that struggle going to be like for you as a student and a first-time college student? Where does that lead you? So we talk a lot about that idea of learning styles, really the understanding that all students learn differently. Career goals, that kind of plays off that idea of major or interest, okay? If there's something further down the line, so students thought about pre-professional or professional careers, whether that's med or law or vet or any of those things, right? What's the reputation of the school then sending students on to further education? Okay. What type of academic support is available, whether that's academic support for an athlete that might be traveling to away games, or academic support for a student that might have a learning difference. So what else is there at the school that's available to the students on a regular basis? And at what level do they offer those things? Some athletic programs do a really great job of that, and some schools, there are tiered levels of academic support at schools, really 3 different tiers. So if any students, any families are working with LD students, happy to talk to you a little bit about that. And then what type of experiential opportunities are there and available as well? Okay, and those might be really basic ideas of study abroad, and does that fit into a college athlete's schedule, to a co-op program where a student might be able to go and work as part of their credit earning semester. So talk a lot about those experiential opportunities as well. Third phase, culture and community of the school itself. Diversity, geographic, ethnic, religious, athletics. Again, coming back to this idea of, can you play? Are you a walk-on? Are you a recruited student athlete? Or are you just going to be there because you like the environment of a University of Michigan, and although you're not going to play on the team, the opportunity to go to a football game with 110,000 students is something that you're really looking for. Are there any clubs or activities that you're particularly involved in? and that might carry on in that college environment as well. And then any other social opportunities, we talk our way through the fraternity and sorority culture at different schools and things like that. Or if you're looking for, you know, wellness dorms or things like that, we'll walk through that process as well. I think one of the key pieces from the counseling side of things as opposed to a consulting side of things is this right here. Really enabling students to look at themselves and give an honest self-assessment, both athletically and academically in this process, and for parents as well. Okay. For us, we do that in a couple of different ways. We use data. We've heard a couple of other guys drop the term data-driven info before. So we use a lot of data, especially from the admissions side of things. We look for a lot of feedback, okay, and that might come from a coach, okay, here or anywhere else that you might be looking. And it might come from a high school teacher or a high school counselor. And then a real self-understanding, right? What do I need to not just survive at the college level, but to thrive? Okay, so we're gonna really work over the course of 2, 3, even 4 years to help students, especially young boys, understand who they are, both as students and as athletes. Let me just walk quickly through the admissions process. Really 2 types of admissions processes in my mind. One is a holistic approach, and then one's an empirical or numbers-driven approach. Okay? Most schools will preach a holistic approach, although I still believe that there's a significant number of schools that are really numbers-driven. And that might be their own goal to raise a ranking. Okay? It might be dictated by a provost or a president or a board of directors. Okay? Or it might just be their ability, because they might have 10 minutes on an application, to not get into a college essay or recommendations as deeply as a school that might be able to spend, you know, hours in committee on applications. Okay? So that first piece, academic qualifications, rigor of curriculum, scores, and we'll use the term GPA, but for me it's really final grades in core courses. Come back to what Tom mentioned before with that idea of GPAs change really often. In fact, when we do an academic breakdown on students, we look at only their 5, potentially 6 core courses and take everything else off the plate. Unless it's a really poor grade, then we'll look at that, because that could also be a red flag for an admissions officer. If a school is reading holistically, the other things that they want to know after you get past those academic qualifications is the person behind the application. Okay, how does that come out? We'll look at a pie chart here in just 1 sec. And then what data or info is used and when is it used from the college admissions side of things. Real quickly, 10 factors that I look at. Okay, for me the big 3, as I mentioned before: grades, rigor, scores. Okay, for some schools it might just be grades or rigor. There's about 700 schools in the country right now that are test optional. In fact, one school today just announced that they're going test blind. Small school, Hampshire College. So they don't even want any scores. I still believe that like Tom mentioned, scores are a driving factor for a lot of universities, because they know where that plays with regard to the rankings process. So grades, rigor, scores, okay, that can get you in a pile that says read more about me, okay? And then that's where the things like essays, okay, involvement in activities, and then leadership in activities come up. Do you add any diversity to a college campus if that's something that they're looking for? How have you shown any intellectual curiosity, okay, outside of just the classroom? Recommendations from teachers and counselors. And then finally, I would say that one that can go either way is this idea of need and interest. okay? And one piece of that is driven by the college, and one piece of that is driven by the student. That idea of need is driven by the college. What do they need to round out their student body that year? Okay, do they need a new oboe player or a new striker that's going to score 20 goals? Or do they need someone from Alaska because they haven't had someone from there for a couple of years? Right, so what's the need of the school? Okay, because remember, they're trying to build a well-rounded class. We used to really preach a lot that well-rounded students is what all the colleges are looking for. Although, in my mind, 1,000 well-rounded students doesn't build a well-rounded class. Okay? So you have to have your athletes and your musicians and your artists and your academics. And all of those put together build this well-rounded class. So we look a lot at that idea of need, the needs of the college. And then the flip side of that is interest. What interest has the student shown in this process? Has the student visited? Is the student going to apply for early decision as opposed to regular decision? Okay, we see oftentimes a nudge factor in that early decision round because it tells the school that you're definitely coming in at their number one choice. And that helps their yield percentage. It's kind of this whole process that goes on from there. Okay, but that idea of interest and need, and for me, that can really easily get pushed up to, you know, the second or third most important factor in the admissions process. Quick timelines for you. For juniors, focused on grades, rigorous coursework. Okay, you're starting to take AP courses if they're offered at your school. Where do you rank with regard to rigor? I typically put students on a scale of 5 when I look at rigor. Right? Some AP courses being the highest, if you get to AP Calc BC as opposed to AP Calc AB, as opposed to honors calculus, as opposed to pre-calc. So kind of just weighing it individualized per student based on what the high school has to offer. And that's how college will look at it as well. Okay, so grades, rigorous coursework. And if you started slow in your high school career, junior year is also an opportunity to really start what we call an upward trend with your grades as well. Right? If you've started strong, maintaining strong grades, if you started a little weaker, a little slower, opportunity to really start to build an upward trend. PSATs in October, SATs or ACTs in the winter or spring, potentially twice, potentially a follow-up in the fall of senior year. Consistency and increased depth in activities. Talk about activities in 2 different ways, right? You first establish consistency, right? So how long have you been participating in a certain activity? And then what's the next step from that is that idea of leadership in an activity. Okay, so starting to build that increased depth. Contacting coaches, okay? Some of the college coaches will talk a little bit about the timeline of their ability to contact you versus the student athlete's ability to contact them, or start to post on certain platforms and things like that, which can also enable some really solid contact. College visits, don't visit anonymously, make sure the school knows that you're there, although not all schools do track college visits, a great number do, so they want to know that you've shown that interest. NCAA Eligibility Center, enjoy a meaningful summer after the junior year. Shouldn't just all be spent hanging out at the beach. What else have you done? Have you done some community service? Is there some activity that you've participated in that you've spent some more time working on? Start your personal statement or your college essay, okay? And then also, we talk about it, especially toward the end of junior year, talking to teachers about recommendations. Okay, some teachers, especially if they're writing a significant number, will already start to write that summer before senior year. Quick senior year timeline. Common App goes live on August 1st of every year. Okay, about 600 to 700 schools use the Common App right now. Okay, a lot of other schools that just use their institutional application will go live sometime in late summer, so especially for fall athletes. Looking at that and starting to work on that over the summer can be a real benefit. Finalize your list and how and where to apply to certain schools. Okay, some of that might be dictated also by the recruiting process, and a school telling you that, hey, we'll support your application if you apply ED or things like that. So we can talk a little bit more about that when we get to the panel as well. Revisit your first choice school, especially if you did a summer visit before, right? Try to, in the fall, get back to that school, see it in full swing, maybe sit in on a class, continue to think about the culture of that school. Maintain strong grades, retake the SAT or the ACT, keep track of all deadlines in different schools, and we'll have different admissions deadlines. Make sure you meet with your school counselor, understand the process for the school to submit transcripts and recommendations and things like that. Financial aid, we'll talk quickly about that in one moment. CSS profile can be submitted in the fall of every year. FAFSA goes live on January 1st of every year. And then review admissions decisions as they start to come in the winter and spring, and make sure to deposit at one school by May 1st. Okay. Real quick financial aid info. 2 forms. One's used by all schools, the FAFSA, that's our federal form. Okay? It's a free application for federal student aid. Must be filled out yearly. Goes live on January 1st of every year. It's an income-driven form. Okay? So that's driven by the income of the parents. Okay? There's the website, fafsa.ed.gov. Do not go to fafsa.com. That's a scam site that says that they'll fill it out for you if you pay them. So it's fafsa.ed.gov. CSS profile is an institutional form. Okay, just about 300 schools use it, and it's to give you their own money. Okay, so those are typically schools that have a significant endowment and give away a significant amount of institutional aid, typically on a need-based basis. Okay, completed on the College Board website, that's who it's issued by. It can be filled out in the fall of every year. And that's an asset-driven form. Okay? Different schools can decide how deeply they want to get involved in that asset-driven questioning. Some schools will go as far as asking what types of cars you drive. Okay? Others will ask how much your house is worth and how much you still owe on it. Do you own a second home? Things like that. So they're looking for your assets as opposed to just those income-driven the income-driven questions of the FAFSA. Okay? Next steps, follow up. If you want any more information, I think we're going to make the PowerPoint available in some way. You can get some emails, an email sign-up sheet if you guys want me to fire off some information to you. Happy to do that. I update my Twitter feed daily with new information, again, from that idea of consumerism. So really just to keep you and whomever updated on current trends in the admissions process. Okay? Thanks so much.
Hey, Tony, do you mind staying up there for a minute?
Yeah, sure.
Hey, you know what we're going to do? To be very, very honest with you, I told all our people to bring a certain amount of stuff out there as refreshments, and all of a sudden it dawned on me on how many people there are in here. So they are over on another part of campus just bringing more stuff over. And there you go. Honestly. It's 1-0.
Suarez scored.
Suarez scored. How about that? All right, there you go. I think that's a good thing. My dog's name is Rooney. And my brother that coaches at Franklin and Marshall calls his dog's name is Giggs, so it tells you a little bit. You know, I think what we'll do for a couple of minutes is really kind of trying to figure out where we kind of fit Tony into the whole Q&A environment. As I mentioned earlier on, and as Coach DeRoche and I were actually just saying as we were sitting here as well, we're just like, we hope you guys are taking notes because the stuff that Tony's laying out is just really important stuff. And so anyway, what we thought we would do is, Tony, if you don't mind, is instead of right now moving out there, is we're just going to open it up for a little bit for you guys to ask questions to Tony. You know, and then we can get into the soccer part a little bit more. But some of the stuff that he's saying, I think, is so valuable and important that I think it just makes sense to give him a little bit more of his own space. You guys a little bit of time to just be able to ask follow-up questions based on Tony's presentation. So, so why don't you guys just go for it? Put your hand up, shout it out, and we'll go from there.
You mentioned that you met with various admission counselors and try to establish trends that you're seeing? Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, sure. I think one of the key trends, and this is something really interesting that we've watched over the last couple of years, is number one, we have less graduating seniors every year now than we will for the next 15 years. Okay? We hit our pinnacle 2 years ago in the United States with regard to graduating seniors. Okay? Yet, colleges continue to see a rise in the applications that are submitted. Okay? So, what we have to look at is why is that happening? Okay? One, we talked about that idea of anxiety, right? Less students submitting more applications, right? Which is oftentimes why schools are accepting a higher number of ED applicants, because it helps with their yield. Does everybody know what yield is? It's the number of students that enroll out of the number of students that are accepted. Okay? A higher yield percentage in certain rankings is a good thing. So schools are looking to increase their yield. Okay? So the flip side of that is, who are the other applicants, right? Because it's not all coming from the United States. Okay? The other applicants are international applicants. That's one thing that we're seeing a lot. And I would say post-economic crash, international applicants became increasingly more attractive to colleges because they do two things. Number one, they don't get oftentimes financial aid, so they're full paying applicants. Okay? Number two, they increase diversity. So pre-economic crash, diversity was a big buzzword in admissions offices. I worked in Newark, New Jersey for 10 years leading into the economic crash. Trust me, diversity was great for a lot of my students. Okay? And colleges were a lot of times willing to spend on diversity. What we've seen is international applicants spending to create diversity for colleges. So that's become a real big key. Okay? I think the other thing that we'll see, Tom mentioned a little bit about testing. We're going to see some things happen out of the SAT and the change in the SAT over the next couple of years. Because last year was the first year that we saw the ACT taken by more high school seniors than the SAT. Okay, so colleges are starting to say, what does that mean? And we saw that the SAT and the College Board said, what does that mean? Okay, I think that other idea of the other trends that we see, rigor, okay, and how to balance rigor and grades. So, Mark mentioned, cheesy jokes. One of our counseling jokes always is, coming from a parent question, do I take the AP class and get a B, or the honors class and get an A? And the response always is, take the AP class and get the A. Right? Well, that wasn't the question, but that's the response, right? Because you want the rigor and the grades, right? For us, it's about finding the balance, and for me, it's about an individualized process and looking at the types of schools that each student's applying to, and really trying to understand where rigor plays the role as opposed to where the grades might play a role. Okay, so again, that's where that individualized process really comes in. So those are a couple of the more recent trends that we've seen.
So you talked about the international students' perspective, and what I've been finding, I'm from Canada, what I've been finding is the education systems and the standardized testing is becoming more in line with the SATs, the ACATs, and the PCATs, and all that sort of thing. But there's still a lot of information that's not getting to the Canadian students from guidance counselors. Most coaches wouldn't even know where to start, how to start. From the provincial organization, that's who I work with, and with national programs, even the national U17, U20, unless there's a tie-in with one of these gentlemen,
Right.
The information is lacking considerably. From a international perspective, what do the kids really need to focus on mostly? Other than the grades, how do they get their foot in the door? Who do they need to contact? Is it administrations? Outside of the coaches? I mean, there's a whole lot of information here.
Yeah, You know, I would say that it's twofold. If you're looking from the college side, you know, most colleges do now have an international admissions staff, if not just single officer, because of this increased number, right? So again, that can vary by school with what they want, right? The other thing that I've seen a lot, and I work with students internationally, is more and more students coming to independent counselors here in the United States to ask for assistance. So I work with IB students in Switzerland and Canadian students in Toronto and students in South America to figure out what they need to do to get here. But it's also to educate them on what else is available here in the States. A lot of times what I've found from the international side of things is, well, U.S. News and World Report, that's put out by the U.S. government, right? So those are your top 50 schools that are ranked there. No. So really trying to educate them as consumers as well as to the schools that are available to them and the schools that are looking for international applicants too.
Well, I think the biggest problem that, from a Canadian perspective, whether and it goes across the country, is it's D1 or nothing.
Right. Yeah. I saw that when I was at the University of Buffalo. We were, working. That's what the guys wanted from Toronto all the time. In fact, I have students now from the States that a good number that go to Canada for, whether it's McGill or UT or different types of schools in Canada because they see the opportunities that are available there for them. So, as an international applicant.
Well, yes, but from the professional perspective and your accreditation, some of our schools are held.
In a ranking.
Well, we have no ranking.
But the world does.
Yeah.
Hey, I haven't introduced these guys that much yet, but Coach DeRocher kind of knows the Canadian scene, not that far from there actually, and had a couple comments maybe in regards to your question as well.
No, I think you're right on about that. I think, we are up close to the border, so actually I have probably 7 or 8 Canadians on my team right now, and I'll tell you there's some unbelievable players in Toronto. I hope to keep coming back and get to those guys, but I spend a lot of my time in the education process because one of the things I think that's good about the Canadian education, and I don't know if all schools look at it like we do as a private institution, but the education in Canada is there are some places that I know they don't even know how to read a transcript from Canada because you have university courses, you have the college courses, you have technical courses. What does that mean? I mean, my son played junior hockey, just finished, so he actually went to school in Canada, and we had some problems because of that. I mean, I look at the class he took, for example, in chemistry at the college level. That's better than our AP class at the school he was in. When they compared class to class, but in the NCAA, they don't accept the college credit. It has to be university. So I mean, it's a big education thing. And I think that's the same thing, and I agree with you 100% in terms of the Division I, Division II, Division III thing. And the best way for me so far to be able to educate them is actually have people come watch us play as a Division III school. And they're like, wow, I thought you guys were Division III. Yeah, we are. There's so many different levels at each level, and people need to understand that. But I spend, before I'm even trying to recruit a Canadian, it's more about the whole education piece from the academic and reading the transcript, and then the athletic side of it. Because I was, you've already mentioned that. Because there's kids from my hometown, because we're not that far from. We're probably 2 hours from Montreal. They go to McGill for a lot of good reasons. So I think that definitely needs to be expanded somehow.
I'm actually from Australia. And basically the same question, it's like trying to work out our academic in relation to the American and what he needs to do to get over here. And we've just got no idea.
Well, if you're looking at it from an NCAA standpoint, you go on eligibilitycenter.org and they still have the academic guidelines for each country listed there. You get at least started in the process. So that's a good place to start, at least from that side of things, which then could lead to the recruiting piece and knowing that you're in good shape from the NCAA, whether that's D1 or D2, right? And then we can kind of flip that, and that's where you have to reach out to certain schools as you really start the process to really see if they understand or if they've ever had anyone that's read that Australian transcript, right? So.
Hey, I will say something, Tony, I hope I'm not putting you on the spot. You work with internationals.
I do.
So know that, you know, Tony is representing us in some respects as YSC, but he also has his own college advising business. Obviously, as I think you can probably tell, he knows his stuff. It's one of the reasons why we really were pleased to have him come in. And so just know that on some of these questions, we probably can't spend a ton of time on some of the international questions. We can a little bit, but just not a ton. But know that, you know, you're welcome. I'm sure Tony's going to be here for a little bit and would be happy to talk with you, and, you know, a lot of different follow-up opportunities that you can do afterwards as well with Tony.
Your timeline started with junior year and senior.
Yeah, I thought that's where we're focused on mainly here.
Okay. If you have a sophomore, you know, I don't need to focus on grades, but quite honestly, they're so busy playing soccer, it's hard to get them to college visits.
Right.
So if we want to take them on visits as sophomores, and I know you might cover this later, should we just go visit? Can you reach out to the coach?
Yeah.
Or are you restricted to just going to visit to sort of get a feel for big, small?
Well, yeah, I can let some of the coaches talk about their willingness to talk to student athletes and when. For me, I'm okay with a summer visit, especially for a sophomore, to start to get a feel for setting and location. You're going to learn more, obviously, about the culture of the school and the student body when it's in full swing. The other benefit that I see on summer visits is an admissions officer isn't running back to their office to read 50 more applications before the end of the day. You might be able to walk into an admissions office and steal 5 or 10 minutes from the rep for your area and talk a little bit about who you are, your son can talk a little bit about who he is, why he's there, really starting to make this connection with someone that's at the school. So for me, those are really positive things, a summer visit. And it's so easy. I mean, you can see the signs even just getting here. There's, 10 schools within a 20-mile radius here. To be able to see a mid-sized and a small and an extra small school within, a day and a half, that's a big benefit. Really starting to then feel your way through how you can best be served by those places.
And we'll be able to answer some of these further with the coaches panel as well, these types of questions.
Brady?
Oh, sorry, go
I
ahead.
think we'll take 2 more, then we'll go to intermission, okay?
Okay, well, I have a junior who's going to be a senior, and it seems like the emphasis has been so much on, like where he's at now is too late, or he's so far behind. And especially at the end, you were talking about the focus of, you need to know where you want to go, look at the schools and stuff. What if you're unsure? I mean, it's like there's so many schools, and
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, where's the starting point?
Let's talk about that after.
Okay.
I'll help you with that.
Could you talk a little bit about scholarships and providing funds?
Yeah, sure. I'll talk quickly about scholarships. Maybe we can get a little into that
Yeah,
too
we'll get
with
into
the
that as
coaches.
well. Yes,
Let me just
sure.
be clear about a couple of things. There's really 2 types of aid, right? Need and merit. And I love athletic scholarships in with merit-based aid because it's a quality of something that you can present to the school, right? Just like I lump leadership scholarships and things like that in with merit-based aid, right? So you have your need and your merit, okay? I would suggest though that, and I get this question a lot, especially from student athletes, non-basketball and football players, that say, we need like a full ride. To me, that's almost an invisible term unless you're a football or basketball player, because those are called head count sports. Those are the only 2 head count sports in the NCAAs. And what a head count sport means is that they give a full scholarship to each student athlete that is recruited, right? So they have a certain number of scholarships that they can give to those students. We don't work that way in soccer, right? Or nearly any other of the, 40 or so sports that are NCAA sports. So I wouldn't first look at that piece, the athletic piece. That'll come and that'll be based on the recruiting process. I would look at maybe where you fit from an academic side of things, right? So a lot of schools will publish on their admissions and financial aid website, you know, last year's numbers for their presidential scholarship, which might be their highest merit-based scholarship, right? So they might say, if you know, students that earned our presidential scholarship last year had a 30 on the ACT and all A's, right? And then you say, okay, well that's great, so that's in this tier for me. Then you might go to another school and they might say, well, our students to get a presidential might have had a 28 ACT and, you know, 3.7. Say, okay, well that might be cool too. And then you can start to categorize schools based on that. Like I stopped using the terms reach and safety and likely and target and things like that. I just categorize schools based on the data on certain students. Okay, so we're going to say from an admission side of things, this school is a category 1. Okay, it wants a rigor of 5, meaning it wants all the highest APs, it wants all A's, and it wants a 33 plus on your ACT. Okay, that's a category 1 for you. And typically those schools are reaches for every student that's going to apply there. Okay, like Stanford and the Ivies and a lot of the other, you know, highly selectives as they've been termed. Okay, right? Then what's a category 2 school for said student? What's a category 3? What's a category 4? And then where might that merit aid fit into those places? Okay, and then how do you qualify for need-based aid too? Every school is required to have what's called a financial aid calculator on their FinAid page on their website. You can plug in your numbers from last year and get at least an estimate for what you might qualify for from a need-based standpoint. And then you can take a look at what you might qualify for from a merit-based standpoint.
Okay. Hey, round of applause first for Tony. He also goes by TC, is that right?
That's right.
And he's going to be around for as we get to Q&A. If we can do this, I've been assured that everything's set up well out there now. Let's just try to have you guys, in the interest of time, grab something, do 3 jumping jacks when you're out there, smile at somebody, I don't know, whatever, and then bust it right back in here, okay? And we'll keep going. Okay. Hey, we're going to get going. People will filter back in here as we're moving along, but we're going to get going in the interest of time. I think Tom's just going to be outside so that if people have questions, you can find them there. And the same thing with Jordan, okay? So we'll kind of get down into I'm going to call it the soccer part of things, but at the end of the day, it's higher education and the concept or the idea of the student-athlete rules. And so I use the term the soccer part of things loosely. It's all connected. Okay. So I just want to do a couple of quick introductions. We have already introduced a number of our panelists. I want to introduce our college coaches, starting with Devin O'Neill. You know, what an amazing thing it is when you talk about the small, such a big world and such a small world all at the same time. So the first time Tony and I connected, it turns out he played with my brother back in the day. And that turned out I probably coached against him, and if I did, we had to have won. So, yeah, so now if I turn around and say that about Coach O'Neill, who I'm going to introduce here in a minute, he's going to look at all of you and say, nah, I beat Wags more than he beat me, and that unfortunately would be true. So, but I think we've got a really good panel. I'm going to start off with Devin. I'm going to read through these pretty quickly, but I do want you to know at least a little bit about these guys' background and why we thought they would be really good panelists. What we've done is we've turned around and brought in a person from Division III, Division I, and Division II, and guys that have kind of been around it a while. Steve's the least around it a while, but as you'll hear in a moment or two, he's been around it probably since he was a little bucky. I'm going to call it that. So I don't even know what that means. So let me start with Devin. Devin is a veteran with 18 years of experience and is currently the assistant coach for the UMass men's soccer program. Devin joined the Minutemen after a 2-year stint at Bradley. Bradley O'Neill helped the Braves to a pair of NCAA tournament appearances in 2010 and 11, marking the first time in the program's history to make back-to-back trips to the tournament. In his 2 seasons in Peoria, the Braves posted a 26-15-5 record with 15 wins in 2011, marking the second most wins in program history. Prior to joining Bradley as an assistant coach in 2010, O'Neill was the head coach at Gettysburg College from 2003 to 2010, and at East Carolina, that was right before that. He went from East Carolina to Gettysburg from 1999 to 02. He started his coaching career in 1994 at Lafayette College before moving on to Fresno State 1996 to 1997 and Ohio State 1997 to 99. In his 7 years as the head coach at Gettysburg, he compiled a 68, 46, and 18 overall record. A few of those wins coming at my expense, including a 38, 25, and 8 mark and 2 runner-up finishes in the highly competitive Centennial Conference. O'Neill also sports 4 years of NCAA Division I head coaching experience, having directed the program at East Carolina, as I mentioned, from 99 to 2002. As an assistant coach at Lafayette, O'Neill helped the Leopards to consecutive Patriot League titles in 94 and 95. He then moved on to Fresno, where the Bulldogs won the Western Athletic Conference title and reached the NCAA tournament quarterfinals in 96. Before beginning his head coaching career, O'Neill spent 2 years as an assistant at Ohio and helped the Buckeyes to a runner-up finish in 1998 Big Ten Conference tournament. I'm just going to turn around and say I don't even know what the other sports are, but did you graduate from Middlebury? And I think it was like, you were All-American in like a couple different sports where I'm probably going to embarrass you, right?
Skiing,
Skiing?
and I did play golf.
Skiing and golf. He's a freak of an athlete, I'll just leave it at that. So, all right. Steve Small, right here, Millersville University. There is a thing in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. My brother Dan coaches at Franklin and Marshall College in Lancaster, so he knows kind of the Lancaster scene, the Lancaster circles, and the Small family, if I can say that, is synonymous with Lancaster. I'm going to read here for a minute or two, and then I'll connect a couple dots. Steve Small has been at Millersville since 2007. In 2011, Steve helped guide the program to its first ever NCAA national semifinal. That's a pretty big deal for Millersville, kind of where they were and where they've gone. I know that because I had a brother that played there many years ago, and Millersville wasn't good then. But they are now, very good. So an NCAA national semifinal appearance in the program's first PSAC championship. He was also instrumental in coaching the Marauders to its 5th straight 10th overall PSAC tournament appearance. Small has helped Millersville to a 71, 26, and 6 overall record since 2007 to make him part of the winningest staff the program has ever had. In 2008, Millersville won a school record 18 games while capturing the PSAC East title for the first time since 1990, finishing ranked number 7 in the nation. Small is a 2006 graduate of DeSales University, having earned his bachelor's degree in sport management. He was a 3-year starter on the men's soccer team. Preceding his coaching career at Millersville, Small served as a scout and as an assistant coach for 2 years at Elizabethtown College and helped the Blue Jays to a Middle Atlantic Conference championship in 2006. Steve comes from a soccer family, here it is, as his father Graham has been a member of the Elizabethtown coaching staff for many, many years. And so I don't know if any of you know the Elizabethtown program. It's a very, very storied program. The head coach there for many, many years is a guy by the name of Skip Roderick, a great coach. And there's another guy that has been his right-hand guy. I don't think you can really be more privileged to be able to coach together. I've got a guy here, Jim Henderson. We've been together 15, 16 years now. It's a special thing. And so Skipper and Graham have been at ETOP for quite a while. And Steve's kind of grown up in that environment for a long time, so he's been around the game for quite a while as well. And then finally, Coach DeRocher. So I've known Coach DeRocher for a long time. We've not seen each other for quite a while. But you could say in certain ways he's a guy that I looked up to all the way back in my days when I coached at a small college in upstate New York called Elmira College. And we weren't very good, and Coach DeRocher had taken over St. Lawrence, and they were pretty good. And every year he coached them, they just got better and better and better. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about his background as well. He's just the third coach in St. Lawrence University's history to earn National Coach of the Year honors. Bob DeRocher has built one of the finest Division III programs in a relatively short time. His 1999 team became the first team in NCAA Division III history to go undefeated and untied en route to a national championship, if I remember correctly, over my alma mater, Messiah College. Is that right? Or did you beat them in the semi or something? What was that?
We beat them that year in the quarters.
In the quarters. Yeah, there you go. All right. So now Messiah just wins all the time. That's unbelievable. So
Probably as tough as the championship game.
yeah, I heard you guys were unbelievable in that game. So his 1999 team became the first in the NCAA Division III history to go undefeated and untied en route to a national championship, and DeRocher was named NSCAA Division III Coach of the Year for his efforts. Excuse me. DeRocher took a career record of 289, 96, and 41 into 2013. So he's won a few more than that. I'm assuming you're over the 300 barrier now. Is that correct?
Hit 306 this year.
306. There's not many people, folks, that have 300 wins. It's pretty impressive. His 25th season at St. Lawrence. His team has made it to the NCAA tournament 14 of the last 16 seasons. DeRocher has racked up coaching honors, including Northeast Regional Coach of the Year 6 times. I'm not going to rattle off the different times. I'm not going to do that in the interest of time. 6 is just a lot. He was named Conference Coach of the Year several times, including Liberty League honors in 2004, 7, 10, 11, and this past year in 2013. Saints completed a perfect regular season with a 16-0 record in 1998, first undefeated team in Saints history to advance to the NCAA quarterfinals, finishing the year 17-0-2 after a shutout loss in the quarters. The 1999 team improved on those records with its 22-0-0 run and became the 3rd team in university history to win an NCAA championship. DeRocher's teams have won 12 conference titles since 1995 and have earned 15 NCAA berths and an ECAC championship. He's produced 78 regional All-Americans, and his players have piled up 19 National All-America honors during his tenure. I think a National Player of the Year as well, right?
Yep.
Danny Anon?
Danny Anon.
Not bad. I don't have that written on here. Huh?
Just got married last week.
Nice, nice. A native of Canton and a 3-sport high school athlete, DeRocher was a 2-year captain and a 4-year starter and conference player at Ithaca College. And so that is our panelist group. I think Tony might be busting back in here. Maybe we scared him off. I don't know. Nice. He went to the back. Or the bathroom.
No,
All right. It's all just semantics, right? So hey, it's my honor to introduce these guys. I'm going to ask them a few questions, and then really from there, I'm going to kind of just warm up the room that way, quite frankly, with a few questions that I'm sure you probably want to ask anyway. Then from there, we're going to open it up, and you guys can ask any question you want. One of the biggest things I'm going to tell you about all 3 of these guys is they're all in it, I think, for the right reasons. They care about people. They're really good coaches that really know what they're doing. Their teams have won a lot, but as Bob just said, so boom, he just rattles it off. Danny just got married. These guys know what's going on with their players, and they care about their players. They're in it for the right reasons, with the good side or the good things that you think when you think about college coaches that care about developing people. And so, guys, thanks for being here. Yes, absolutely.
I have to pick up my pregnant wife from work. If it's okay with you, I'm going to leave the flyouts that have the access codes with Mark if any of you weren't able to get them from me just now, and then I have to take off. So, okay with you?
Yep, absolutely. Thanks for coming. All right, so first question. What is the most helpful way for you to have student athletes reach out to you guys, to let you know of their interest? I stated that differently than how do you market yourself to colleges? If you noticed, I'm going to ask it one more time. What is the most helpful way for you to have student athletes reach out to you to let you know of their interest?
I mean, I think the technology age, obviously the easiest way for the kids is to send an email. I mean, you get a ton of emails, but sometimes that does become challenging because you get so many emails, but it's fast and it's easy. So
we similar answer at UMass. We have a kind of an online recruiting file. It's a database, and so if an email comes in, basically that file, we update it, but it remains dormant until there's a reason to make it an active file. And in a calendar year, we could probably have 500 to 600 kids in that file. So one of the things, and I think it's appropriate with the gentleman that was speaking to you about the video platform that's available, is one of the things that makes a file jump closer to the front of the list is to have a little link with some video in it. And it can be easily attached to the email, because if there's a little bit of game footage that can be paired with the profile, it's very important. And if you can imagine that for some of these larger recruiting events, we could have probably anywhere from 50 to 100 emails prior to the event. And depending on how many of our coaches are attending those, it's just not physically possible for us to really evaluate all of the kids. So again, I always encourage that video part of the contact, because with a good clip, you know, it can bring a profile into a must-see category. And so it's just another way to differentiate yourself from the group.
Steve, anything?
Sure, it's the
Or
same
they get
boat.
it?
Just email is probably the first and easiest way, especially in this day and age. One thing I'll add to that as well is make sure, like it was mentioned earlier, I believe by Tony, about personalizing your email to the coach. Make sure that you have the right school listed in your email to the coach. Don't write, "Hello, Coach Small, I like your school at UMass." I've seen a couple of those, so just make sure that when your son is sending out his emails, that it is personalized to the school, that it does mention everything about that school, that he has done his research on those individual schools.
Great. So, since I work for Future 500, I'm going to answer the question too. I'm glad I asked the question. So here's how I'm going to hit it. So if you got a piece of paper, take it out and write if you want to. I'm going to tell you how to get in the A pile. I'm going to try to make this Mark Wagner simple math. Okay? Simply call it how to get in the A pile and not end up in the B pile. Okay? How you end up in the B pile is you turn around and you use a recruiting service, and they turn around and they instantly calculate in their mind. If you send it to me and it's a recruiting service, it's going to 50 other places, right? I see a lot of recruiting service metrics on how many colleges that they have access to. I don't see a lot of reciprocal metrics on how many people actually get contacted as a result of all the people that it was sent to. That's not a good marketing shtick for a recruiting company. Okay. So that's how to get in the B pile number one. How to get in the B pile number two. Dear Coach, I really like your college. Even dear Coach, I really like your college. I think UMass would be a really good place to be. He's got a name. It's Coach O'Neill. So customize. And so here's how we do it. Here's how we recommend people do it all the time. Number one, and I mentioned this a little bit before. This is the A pile, all right? The A pile is customize a cover letter to every college that you're looking at. One of the things that we've done here to try to make it easier, maybe some of you have noticed it, maybe you haven't. If you go to our website and see all the colleges, there's actually two different links. One of them is to the athletic website page. The other is to the university website page. We do that for a reason. In order to make informed decisions, you need to look beyond the athletic page. You're going to college, right? And so do they have your major? Do they have, is it a private? Is it a public? Is it a big college? Is it a small college? What are all those different parameters that make it fit right, where it may fit you? And the bottom line is this. It takes time to customize letters to colleges in an intelligent manner that gets colleges to look and turn around and say, you know what? Maybe we'll turn around and either look at your video or try to get a coach out there to see it play. So you customize your letter like mad, detailed. You have these majors, I'm interested in them. I see that you're graduating a few people in a particular position. Shows you've done some homework. I love the geographic location. I like the size of your school. Say the size of the school and that you're looking for schools in that range. Get details so that coaches know, yes, they've done their homework. Attach your athletic resume. In your athletic resume, put your film clips on, just put a link. And so you got two different ways. We had soccer recruits that were here. That's one method. And again, we wouldn't have brought them in if we didn't think it was a good method. With soccer recruits, the only thing that Jordan didn't hit candidly as well as I would have wanted him to, I'll talk to him about it after, is on the soccer recruits in their setup. If you turn around and use their year subscription, you create it, they help you to a very good electronic resume, okay? They're not sending it out to anybody for you. They're not trying to mass market you. It's not what they do. Otherwise, we wouldn't have brought them in because I don't believe in it. They give you, when you send out, that once you create your profile, there's a place where you can turn around and put your whole customized cover letter. Okay? You need to be real detailed with that thing. Even if you have it in a Word document, you can turn around and write it in a Word document. It's probably easier than their interface, I think. And then you put it into the email that you send to them, and then it has with that your profile. Okay? In their case, you're turning around and they're editing your film if you have them do that. If you're not having them do that, what do? I call it, and you can get on our blog, I simply call it 5 minutes of film. It's a real easy way to think about it. So here's how you make 5 minutes of film. Number one, try to get up a little bit higher where the quality of the film is good. Number two, 5 minutes of film. This breaks down this way. At the point where you touch the ball, go backwards 5 seconds, right? That's where you start your edit. And then let it run 5 seconds after, okay? And that's your 5 seconds. Basically gives you a 10-second clip. Just do that enough times until you have 5 minutes of film. Send that to the coach. It's the simplest way that I can tell you to put together film. Most coaches don't have time to watch a match of yours, and they don't want to watch 20 minutes of your film most of the time either. 5 minutes of film usually works quite well. You can take that, you can put it on YouTube, you can attach it to your resume, or if you don't want to do that work yourself, we've got a great option here for you, and that's soccerrecruits.com. Okay? So that's how I would turn around and recommend that you try to get yourself into the A pile. Make sense? Good. Okay. All right. Devin, this one's for you. You have coached extensively at both the Division I and Division III levels. What would you say are the biggest differences between the two, especially as it impacts the experience for the student athlete? It's a loaded one, right?
Well, and I can talk a little bit about some of the myths, but first and foremost, the biggest differences are the NCAA rules as it relates to the yearly calendar. Shortly, I came to Gettysburg College, which is a Division III school in the Centennial Conference, in 2003. And just shortly after I arrived there, the NCAA really drastically changed the yearly calendar for Division III athletes. They really shrunk the spring season, which was unfortunate, but there's a philosophical reason why they did that. They went from probably a 5 or 6 game spring schedule, and probably what was it, 2.5 months at that time, to where now it's 15. Depending on the conference you're in, but it's 15 or 16 practice opportunities in one date of competition. So it's a greatly reduced spring calendar, and there are actually some Division III conferences that do not allow spring play. I attended Middlebury College, which is a Division III school, and it was wonderful. It was a perfect fit for me in all regards. I just loved my experience there. If I am totally honest, the one regret that I had is that we didn't have spring soccer. And the philosophical difference is the NCAA would come back and say, well, you were a 3-sport athlete there, and because you didn't have spring soccer, you played golf. And that's great, and I did enjoy that opportunity. But if I could have had the choice, I would have chosen spring soccer over golf. personally. And you know, but that is the feeling there is they want to safeguard the experience so that multiple sport athletes have a greater opportunity, or if, you know, there's an extracurricular activity. For example, when I was at Gettysburg, we had Chris Bayonne, who was a wonderful player for us. He was a concert level pianist. You know, you have some different guys that have different talents. So it really carves out some natural time in their calendar to express those different interests. So the yearly calendar at the Division I level, it's a pretty extensive calendar. We'll arrive on campus in the middle of August. If we're successful in the season, we're getting into at least middle to late November with conference playoffs and then the national tournament. The national tournament would end in early to mid-December. And then we are basically shut off until they come back at the end of January for the spring semester. At that point, we have a 1-month window where we're allowed to be with the players officially for 8 hours per week. 6 of those are purely strength and conditioning, and 2 of those are actually full-on soccer practices, the entire team with a ball. And then at the end of February through the end of April, we have a full season, a developmental season. It doesn't count towards playoffs. There's no rankings, anything like that. It's a developmental season, but we're allowed to be together 20 hours per week, and we are have 5 dates of competition. Wow. I literally brought down the house. I've had a lot of bad reactions when I speak. That's going to be
Nice. All right. I was starting to try to.
Do you want me to keep going?
Everything you said was true. I don't know what.
This is a Christian university. I'm getting nervous. So, anyways,
It's be a lightning bolt.
that's it. But so really, the differences are in the yearly calendar. We are together a great deal of time. You know, it's a good 9 months. It is possible, but rare, very rare for multiple sport athletes at the Division I level. And so I think it's important that your sons are aware of those differences as it relates to their experience. Now, I'll tell you some myths, and probably the biggest kind of irritating approach that I dealt with when I was at Gettysburg College was there's a perception in some circles that Division III is a catch-all division, and that if nothing else works out, you can play Division III. And I have to tell you that nothing could be further from the truth. We, I think, had a wonderful team when I was at Gettysburg, but we played against some phenomenal teams. Eastern was a great team. Messiah down the road from us at Gettysburg, they're as good as you get. I mean, it was incredible. The Centennial Conference in particular is just, you know, it's murderer's row. And there's just some great players. Some of the best players that we had at Gettysburg would be stars at UMass, to be honest with you. So what you really have to do is you have to evaluate the institutions and the programs based on their own merits. And the other perception, the kind of the flip side of it that I deal with now at the Division I level, is that it's impossible to get an education at Division I. You're there for the sport and the sport only. Nothing could be further from the truth. Our kids are there for the quality of the education, first and foremost. We have guys that are performing wonderfully well in the classroom. Now, you know, we do have a wide spectrum of guys, and not all of our guys are doing phenomenally well, but a large portion of our team are. One of our returning seniors has a perfect 4.0. He was just an academic All-American, and I can tell you with absolute confidence that in 6 years he'll be a physician, which has been his lifelong dream. And so, you know, Division I student athletes are busy people. They have to manage time, but you can get a wonderful education at Division I institutions, and you can play absolutely wonderful soccer at Division III institutions. So evaluate the institutions based and the programs based on their own merits. You know, you get into trouble when you try to paint a division with a broad brush, because it's just not accurate.
Excellent. Thanks. I think it's very helpful. Hey, I just want to say too, the electricity might have gone out. So this is what happens to my brain's just going all over the place. So you might notice me take my laptop and put it in there. My battery died, but in the beautiful world of the cloud, I got it on my iPad too. I just wanted to say that. So we can keep going, you know? Power may go out, but I got my iPad. It's all good. All right, so next question. If you were advising a family friend, I'm setting this one up, right? If you were advising a family friend, how would you advise them to narrow down their final couple of colleges and then make the final choice? Anybody? Anybody?
Well, I think if you're trying to narrow it down, in my mind, that means you've already been on campus a few times. Hopefully, you've gone early and to try to get to that 3 to 5. Hopefully, you've had an admissions interview, you've had an admissions tour, you've attended some classes, you spent the night with some of the soccer players, and so you really kind of get the feel of that school. And I think it's really, really important that you do that with all the schools that you're interested in. I mean, to really narrow that down. And some schools you do this, and some schools you do that. It makes it much more difficult to try to make a comparison. You know, it's an apples to apple or apples to orange approach. So I think you should try to keep that as consistent as possible. Most of the people, I guess, from my experience, they're going to walk onto a campus that they feel comfortable. They can just see themselves, feel themselves at that school. And I think, you know, the hardest thing is when you get down to those 2 or 3, and, you know, we've probably lost some kids because I don't try to talk players into coming to our school. I want them to come. And having been at St. Lawrence for, I think this is probably my 25th or 26th year, I can probably count on one hand the number of players that we've had transfer. That's what I'm looking for. Somebody that's going to be here, as you heard Tom or TC talk earlier. It's not a 4-year experience, it's a 40-year experience. That's the kind of players that I'm looking for. So, I mean, I think it's important to have that comparison.
All right. The next question. How prevalent are scholarships at the D1 and the D2 level, especially full scholarships?
I'll jump in first at the Division I level, and how about you just round it out? Division I, and I'll speak on the men's side. Division I men's soccer is what's called an equivalency sport. So the maximum number of scholarships that Division I men's program can have is 9.9. And I don't know how they came up with the 0.9, but dealing with the NCAA is never easy, so I think they just did it to be increasingly difficult. So let's just say it's 10. And you can divide that up any way you want. You could have a full scholarship player, but for example, if you could imagine that a roster is composed of 26 players, you can do the math. It's not going to be. It's going to be some high scholarship guys, some low scholarship. You could even have people on book scholarships, and then a large number of guys that are really paying their way. Maybe they have an academic scholarship, maybe they got some need-based aid to try to help with the bill, but there's a wide range there. But the other thing that you have to understand is there's a wide range of Division I men's programs that have much less than the 10 scholarships. For example, at UMass we have 2. And so it's something that I don't think is widely publicized, but it's fairly common. I mean, we're not in that rare of company, because one of the issues that you come up against, for example, our football program was just elevated to 1A status. So, you know, that's the highest level of football that's able to be played. That's 85 scholarships on the men's side. And then we have to try to balance that on the women's side to be in compliance with Title IX, okay? So your non-revenue male sports have to, you know, fit into those categories where the numbers on the men's side and the numbers on the women's side equal up. So, you know, even if an institution wanted to sponsor men's soccer at the fullest level, sometimes they just can't, because especially if they're trying to sponsor football, those are some of the issues that we personally run into, and I don't think we're unique in that regard. So there's a lot less scholarship money out there than I think what people may hope for. And so go into it with your eyes wide open. You know, the FAFSA process is important to get need-based aid. As TC mentioned, you know, look at the academic scholarship opportunities. What may be a merit scholar at one school, it might not be at the other school, so that should factor into your decisions.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the biggest things that, I guess the biggest myths out there, that just because we're Division I or Division II, we have all the scholarship money. And it's not true at all. For example, you know, UMass has 2 scholarships, full rides. Us at Millersville, we have 0.5. And we're still as successful as we are. It's just, schools don't have the funds that are promoted and supposedly, you know, set out there that everybody has all this money. It's just not true. Each school is different across the board. So I think the biggest thing is, like was just said, going with an open mind, knowing that the chance of getting a full ride is extremely, extremely rare. It just doesn't happen these days, especially Division II. I can pretty much guarantee it's not going to happen. For example, like we have 0.5 scholarships for our entire roster. Like 3 years ago when we went to the Final Four, we had 2 kids on $1,000. That was it. And we went to the Final Four. Yeah, so it's just not available. We would like it to be more, but it's just not available. So I think just going in with an open mind and just knowing that scholarships are extremely hard to come by. So if that's something you're relying on, like it's been said many times, look at the academic side, look at your FAFSA, talk to your guidance counselors, because I mean you can write a paper, like a 1-page paper, and get a $500 scholarship. I mean there's a variety of different ways besides getting the athletic scholarship.
Huge for us, right, Mark? Huge as Division III coaches. I mean, and you know, I hate to say it. I mean, I use that to my advantage because I know without a doubt we give out more money than a lot of programs do at higher levels, because it's not about our athletes. It's about, we give out a lot of money to kids in general. I mean, one of the reasons I'm still at St. Lawrence is I think it's the University of Opportunity. We aided 80% of the class last year. It's a lot. And so my job as a coach is not only find good people and good players, but I try to help families find the matrix that admissions and financial aid are looking for. As TC was saying the same exact thing earlier. You know, what is a school looking for this year to make a well-rounded class? They might just play soccer as well and be pretty good. So I help families, okay? You know, this kid does a ton of community service. Different schools have, as Tom was saying, that's considered merit money or leadership. You know, we at a period of time had a big diversity scholarship, trying to increase our diversity on campus. We had a Canadian scholarship at that time. You know, and so you as a coach, you know, we need to know what money is available for the students in general, and then hopefully you can find players that fit in that matrix. So we, you know, we've been very, very fortunate.
Yeah, I was in and out when TC was talking, and so I'm sure he hit some of this, but long and the short of it is, don't write off a college simply by the sticker price. There's a lot of different ways. All colleges discount. And you can turn around. I laugh sometimes. This is not a political Republican or Democratic statement. Please know that. But the president that has been in office for the last number of years and his Secretary of Education, obviously I pay a lot of attention to this because I'm in higher ed. I think Artie Duncan's done some good things. I like the guy. Some of the stuff he's done anyway. But bottom line is, I laugh sometimes about some of the initiatives that have been being discussed about the incredibly high cost of higher ed, I turn around and say, hey, have you guys just turned around and talked to college about the millions and millions, depending on the size of the college, tens of millions, no one's less than tens of millions, hundreds of millions or more in funding, and grants, scholarships, etc., that discount the cost of the college. So the only thing I'd say to you is, don't just look at the initial sticker price of the college. Engage with those colleges that you think might be a good fit. And many times, not always, but there's many times where you may find it's affordable. And so, you know, part of maybe what you're hearing here is that there's not as much scholarship money out there as you might think. And you know what? It's the truth. It's the sad truth. But there's a lot of other financing vehicles that are also available that can help. So don't just let the sticker price scare you away. All right, I think I've got one more question. This one goes to Bob, and this is going to be my last one, and we'll open it up to Q&A. I'm doing this because I think Bob, his reputation precedes him as being a gentleman in the game. His team plays unbelievably good soccer, but he's just known as a guy it's just philosophically just a pure program. And so Bob, my question for you within that context is just, what would you say are the distinctives of the Division III experience?
Well, I think you have an opportunity to really get to know your players well. I hope that anyway. I mean, for me, the highlight of my year, honestly, is not going to the NCAAs. I've been fortunate to go quite a few times. It's actually my alumni game. And so we laugh because, you know, we extend our spring season by having our alumni game during the spring. So we'll play 2 Division I teams in that one date that Devin was talking about, and then we'll also have enough guys back. We'll actually make 2 games into our one date for our alumni game. Doesn't count against that. But we laugh because, you know, the guys are saying, "No, we're gonna kick your team's butt this year." I said, "Well, that's good because I'm gonna sit with you guys today. You know, I can't lose. You know, I mean, it's great. I have my current guys. We're going to be working on some specific things that are important to their development. But then we got all the guys coming back that we're looking to have, you know, a fun time with, and seeing how their families are growing and the relationships. So for me, I think and not that this can't happen, it certainly does in Division I and II programs. But for me, I think it has to be more about the students and their experience. And unfortunately, you know, I do compete against them more. It's about what kind of record they can ring up and who they're going to play every year. I think the biggest mistake at our level is when we started letting coaches make schedules. They should have just thought, well, we're not going to be that good this year. I'm going to schedule these teams. Next year, we're going to do this. And in the end of the day, who's it really for? You know, and that's the thing. And I think honestly, over the years, I've become a better coach because I have 3 kids, and they've had unbelievable coach. And I've had coaches I turn to my wife and say, I don't ever do that, do I? Because if I do, you gotta kick my butt. So it's easier for me to relate to my players because I look at them as my own kids. And is this something I would want to have happen to my kid or not? And so at the end of the day, they're going to remember, you know, and certainly guys are going to remember when they won the national championship game, but I hope they remember more about what happened during the season to get there. And I know for a fact it's the relationship that they still have with each other. It's when they get together, and they'll tell you personally, it's like they never left each other. That's the type of environment that I think that you can do. And I'm not saying that you can't do that at Division II and I because you can, but I'm not sure everybody cultivates that type of experience.
Great, thanks. Anything to add, you guys? Anything before we open it up to them?
Relative to Division III experience?
Or anything else before they start?
No, I think it was very well said.
Awesome.
I mean, I think we're really fortunate. One of the things, I've been in this a long time, you know, obviously I love the kids that have played for me, and I know this sounds crazy, but I still stay in touch with a lot of kids that didn't come to St. Lawrence. They called me up to see if they could work camp and all that, and that's fine because, you know, if they had a good fit and a good experience at someplace else, that's great. But one of the best things about this is guys like these guys sitting here next to me and standing over there. The people that you meet in the sport, I have to say, you know, there's not a lot of people that aren't good people that are coaching soccer that I personally know. And I think that's great, you know, and I know a ton of Division I coaches, you know, a lot of guys that started, you know, here's a guy, right, he's a Division III coach, he's coaching Division I. I have a lot of friends like that because I've been doing this a long time. They're all great guys, you know, and in fact, I find myself sometimes sticking up for some of my friends that they don't realize that I'm friends with this guy, but this coach didn't do this because I'm recruiting this kid, and so is he, and something fell through the cracks. And I said, well, you know, I know this guy personally. That's not something he would do to your son, because I know him personally. And so I think that's a good thing. There's a lot of good coaches and good people out there to support them.
All right, well, we are at that point in time for Q&A. I know we've been here for a while, but feel free to fire away. And let me say two different things. First, if you don't feel rude, if you just want to get up and take off at any point in time based on your schedule. Outside of that, feel free to fire away with questions, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. Yes, the gentleman in the blue.
Yeah, when you were talking about emails, one, you want them from the player, correct? Two, how important, every school has these recruiting questionnaire on your sports site. Is that important as well?
Well, Devin spoke about that. Obviously, he talked about how you would be active and inactive, or how do you get to the front. Mark pointed on that. I think it's really important because, again, it's not uncommon to get 500 or 600 kids in a database a year, and if they don't fill out the questionnaire, then we're trying to put them in. And honestly, there's so many kids that play, I don't have time to put all the kids in unless there's somebody I saw, they haven't put it in, then I'll probably put in as much as I know about them and try to get them to put more in and become interested. So I think filling out the questionnaire, it puts you in a different spot. Yes, it's easier to track people. Most of those questionnaires are linked to some sort of database.
How do you stay on the A list after an injury?
Depends on the coach, I guess. I mean, I just recruited a kid for 3 years. He tore his ACL. Everybody forgot about him but me. You know, the sad thing, I still didn't get him. But he appreciated that. I knew the kid was going to recover just because I knew his personality. I knew when I watched him play, I talked to his coach and he said, well, you know, he's probably 2 months away still. And the kid wasn't even wearing a brace. He tore his ACL. I was watching his tournament. His speed was unbelievable. He's cutting. It's like anybody watching this kid, there's no one know that he's going to have an injury. So I think a lot of that depends on the kid. I would have taken this kid anyway because even with his torn ACL, he was that good. And even if he only recovered 80%, the type of kid he was, I would have still had him in my program. So I think it just, you know, stay in contact and they'll tell. I mean, it's easy for me to say that because it's not my scholarship money. That may influence, you know, I'll let you speak about that, Devin.
Yeah, again, I think the critical piece is communication. For better or worse, Division I recruiting is getting very, very early. For example, we're currently working on the kids who graduate in 2015. About 40% of the kids that we contact in that class have already made college decisions. So you have to imagine that scholarship offers have already gone out. So the timing of an injury could be unfortunate as it relates to scholarship offers, but by the same token, things do occur. You know, kids make other decisions and money becomes available at unforeseen times and things of that nature. So, you know, I don't want you to think that you know the opportunity has gone by, but I would just encourage you to reach out to the schools that he's interested in. Explain clearly, you know, and honestly what has happened, what his time frame for rehab is, and when he'll be, you know, potentially cleared for full play and participation. There's a young man that I met with 3 months ago that was coming off an ACL. He won't be cleared until August, but he's going to come to one of our 2-day camps in August. We'll have a look at him there and see what we can do. And so, you know, but he was very upfront with the injury and what his time frame was. So we have that in the back of our mind, and we're looking forward to being able to see him play later.
Yes, right here in the
Yeah, I
front.
wonder if each of you could put us, like, through your eyes, what you look at when you get a 4-minute, 5-minute video clip, or when you're at a big combine or a showcase tournament like this. What are you looking for? I mean, sometimes we see with these tournaments in the side with a clipboard, but I wonder if you could just share your perspectives.
Well, I think a lot of that depends on, you know, what you need. I also think it depends on your style of play. Obviously, everybody's looking for good players, but somebody that plays a certain way may fit into a system better than somebody that plays another way. So, I mean, obviously, we can improve speed, but we can't make speed. So that's always, the game is fast now. Transition, you know, I mean, it's decision making, you know, speed of play. I mean, that's the whole game now. So that's really important, you know. Then obviously to have that, you have to have a good touch on the ball, right? My type of game, we play a big possession game. If you can't receive the ball and pass, you won't be to play. You know, that's big. I mean, if you take 2 touches to settle a ball, you're never going to have time, you know, at the highest level. So, or even at our level. So it's, I mean, it's, you know, and then if you want to talk about defensive, is somebody when they're playing D, do they try to make the person go to the weak foot? I mean, I tell my players all the time, you can tell pretty quickly, unless the guys are just a real smart player, what foot they are. I mean, if I pass the ball at you 10 times, 9 times you're going to take it with your strong foot. I need to recognize that in a player and make them play it the other way. So instead of playing just straight on, I'm going to overplay one side. Just little things like that, so you can see a little bit defensively, a little bit offensively. I mean, that's kind of what I look at.
In the interest of time, I'm not actually going to have these two answer that question. I hope that doesn't seem rude. I want to make sure that we get to a number of different questions. I'm gonna just wrap this one up this way. The answer is each one of these guys is going to have different things that they look for in players, and I'm not trying to be evasive as I answer it. And the second part of that is what they look for in players is going to also be just predicated on their positional needs. So, for example, you know, if a team's looking for a center back, and you know they may be looking for a big 6'2", very athletic, great in the air, just a man, gets stuck in on tackles. Maybe doesn't have to be technically quite as clean, or you know maybe they're looking for an inside midfielder that's real creative on the ball, turn really well, great receiving touch, clean in the pass. So it's really just going to depend on needs. Okay, let's keep going. Gentleman right there in the white, from Texas.
Yeah, Mark, just
Yes.
before you turn a little bit, what are you, and going back to here.
Yeah, sure.
Expectations of the parents coming here, visiting here, parking here.
Sure.
To visit, I mean, nothing's been communicated about that. I just want to know what we can do, what we can't do.
Yeah, absolutely. So here at Eastern, I would recommend you don't swim in the ponds. They're not that clean. All right, it's a bad joke. But you can fish in them. I take my boys in there sometimes. So, no, hey, you guys are welcome to watch any game that you want to. One of the things that we've got set up at all our different fields is, and to be honest with you, I'm not sure if we got them, if they came in today. There's supposed to be these signs that just say we've got these bike racks, and then on these, and then there's these signs, and it just says players and coaches only. The easiest way to know where they are, if the signs aren't there, you'll see the bike racks. There's at the halfway line on all the fields, there's a tent, and there's a table underneath there. It's just kind of that whole side. We just want that area. We just want that area for coaches and players. Outside of that, you'll notice at Eastern, there's just all kinds of good places to sit and watch a match. You're welcome to. And the same thing is true at Cabrini. Okay, so you can watch anywhere. Just give players and coaches their space. That's the biggest thing. Good. Another thing that you'll notice at this camp, if you are watching, and we've said this to a lot of people that have called. When all our coaches were in here, we did our orientation a little bit ago. We made it real clear. Future 500 is the largest ID camp in America, with over 50 colleges here. It is not a player development camp. It's a player identification camp, and there's a big difference. And so the structure of what it is that we're doing and how we're doing it is predicated largely on a matrix that allows players to play as many games as humanly possible in a pretty compressed time without destroying guys. And so to give you a little bit of an idea, if you're out on the field, what you'll see, most of our teams are 14 or 15 on a team. They're going to play 6 11-a-side matches, they're going to play 4 8-a-side matches. If they make the All-Star game, which over 50% will play in an All-Star game, that's not a marketing pitch. That is an intelligent way to try to get players seen in this kind of one environment, 2 fields going on, a whole bunch of games, a whole bunch of players getting seen. So if you play in that game, that'll be your 7th 11-a-side game. Now those games will be about 45 minutes. It's like a half of soccer, and the players will rotate through that. We are not going to overcoach players within those environments. There's actually different restrictions within certain games. The coaches will coach them on coaching points within those games to kind of what we would call create environments where the game is the teacher, but without slowing it down and stopping and making points. We want players out there playing so that they can be seen by coaches, and we want players rotating from field to field, playing in matches. Okay, and so that's our structure. Everyone has 2 sessions with 2 different college coaches, and candidly, the purpose of that is also not so much to try to turn around and develop a player because they're with a college coach for an hour. At the end of the day, it's not going to happen. Here is what we're trying to do. We think light bulbs go off when players are with good coaches, especially good coaches that are passionate and care, and just coach really well, that they see different viewpoints from that coach, higher demands, different ways of thinking about the game tactically, technically, transitionally, whatever it might be, and that maybe that helps light bulbs to go off with players that cause them to go back to their club teams, their high schools, in their backyard, something missed in America too much, and try to train to get to a higher level. So that's the purpose of those. Yes?
When should players and parents expect information from the coaches, college coaches, and pictures in them?
Okay, so your question is what?
What they should expect, students and parents, to expect information from the coaches and how they felt about it.
If they were interested in them. Okay, yep, okay. If you guys hear the question, in case you didn't, yeah, I'll just repeat it. So the question was, basically, I'm gonna paraphrase it, okay? So basically, the question is, everyone here is obviously hoping that you're gonna get contacted by colleges after campus as a result of playing. When might that happen? My assumption that in most scenarios is that's gonna happen within a week or 2 after the camp. That would certainly be our recruiting coordinator, associate head coach, Jim Henderson is sitting back here. He's actually the guy that keeps me straight. And if we were at an event, recruiting event, and we didn't have within 48 hours letters sent out to the people that we saw that we liked, he might try to fire me. He's got enough power, he might be able to pull it off. So most coaches are going to get stuff out pretty quick. It's probably going to be seeing stuff within a week to 2 weeks, I think, in most situations. You guys agree with that? John is speaking.
So maybe for that, D1, if you're not union yet, you're not allowed, right? Isn't that August 1st?
I'll just touch on that quickly. Again, the NCAA is a little bit cumbersome, and this rule will be changing, but it doesn't take in effect till August. So we can email 2015s currently. We'll be able to call 2015 starting July 1. 2016s, what we'll do is we'll get them in the database, may be able to send information if we're running a camp, but there can't be any direct recruiting approach until September.
Yeah. Thanks, Devin. I should have made that clear. Yep. Obviously, their windows, recruiting windows are different. I don't know if Tony talked about it when I was outside or not, but their windows are slightly different that way. Thanks, Devin. Sure. Gentlemen in the back, because I think you've raised your hand a couple times.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Long shot question here.
Sure.
All right. A lot of international people here. Well, my son, a couple of Canadians, Australians, whatever. You're saying go to these colleges like 3 times and then see if your son likes it? You're talking big bucks, you know what I mean? You're talking, is there any way that maybe you could say like, help us out, like some people come from California to UMass 3 times, that's a pretty big nut. Call that as I see it, you know what I mean?
No, that's a very fair point, and as we are looking to recruit somebody from a great distance, how we approach it, because with our recruiting budgets being what they are, we can only fly in a small number of kids per year. So the more local recruits, yeah, come onto campus. And what you have to understand is unofficially, meaning we don't pay for anything, kids can visit your campus any number of times. And it can start, you know, even sophomore, junior year in high school, there's no restrictions in that regard. But when we're paying for somebody to fly in, what we will do, and this will be program specific, so you should ask this question directly to the coaches that are recruiting your son, is we will arrange everything on the front end in terms of this is the amount of financial aid that you're eligible for, this is the scholarship that we're giving you, your stuff has been reviewed by admissions, you're admissible. And so, you know, assuming that you come to campus and you, within reason, within reason, you know, you like what you see, we expect you to come. Is that agreeable? And then if the answer is yes, then we'll look to fly that person in. But we don't just fly them in and then arrange all the details on the other end of that. We're bringing them in basically for them to kick the tires and just make sure that they're absolutely comfortable. So that's how we approach it when it's a long distance recruit.
Okay, part two to that then. He wants to go to your school, or a school next to your school, or he wants to make that whole United States trip. He don't want to be rejected either, you know what I mean? We have to have a door open for him. You know what I mean? We got to work together with him.
So, are you?
Well, I basically every parent in here is after the same thing, right? Say yes.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Right or wrong. Everybody's trying to get into a school. Everybody wants their kid to do better.
Sure.
We don't want the door to close on us, like we're coming 3,000, 5,000, 10,000 miles, and all of a sudden, like,
well, so
you say yes, we say yes, we make a deal, let's do it. You know what I mean? Like, we'll come visit. No, you say come visit, we'll be there.
Yeah, and that's how we approach the long distance recruits. We deal with everything on the front end so that there's no surprises, because we're picking up the cost of the flight, and we just don't have it but to do a few times in a recruiting year. Now, if you're talking about coming from Ireland and making a US tour, which a lot of kids do, I get emails frequently from foreign kids that say, hey, I'm, in this 2-week period, I'm going to be in the United States and I have an interest in your school. Can you meet with me on, at any time within these 3 dates? And so kids coming from great distances can knock out a number of schools, maybe in a week, just with some early planning and giving coaches windows.
Basically the question I was asking.
And the other thing to consider with that is you can also tie in a few ID camps, possibly in that regard, really expose yourself and get a lot of bang for your buck. Sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, others? Yes, gentlemen.
I promise you, I will not say no.
We'll keep it going. We'll keep it going. I've got a flashlight app on my iPhone. So you think it's to shine to you, I'm going to shine it on them if they're the person that's supposed to talk. So, no, I think we had this gentleman right here. I think was the next one.
I just, we got a couple kids up here. We're from South Carolina, and our kids are 2018. They're going into 9th grade. Yep. One of the Furman University coaches told us the recruit process now. Not a part of the reason I came here. It's starting so much earlier now. We used to be 10th and 11th. Now at 9th, they have a kid already committed to their school from Atlanta in 9th grade. And it's like, I heard you mention something about coming to visit the campus overnight with the soccer players. I mean, how would that process work? Is that considered an unofficial visit, an official visit? I mean, you know, because we're trying to get everything we can as far as what's the best for our boys, because we just here, start younger.
Sure. No, I mean, it's tough, and it is doing that. I mean, if we're bringing somebody to campus to stay with our players, they're a top recruit. We don't do that for everybody. I mean, it'd be like Holiday Inn with my poor guys. You know, so it's, you can, as Coach O'Neill said, you know, you can come and visit the campus anytime and still meet with the coach if you set stuff up early enough. And as TC said earlier, maybe you step into admissions at that time. You know, I think the biggest thing is, you know, do they even know what they're interested in? That's the hardest thing, is studying, right? I mean, kids don't even enjoy high school anymore. They're making decisions about college, and they haven't even made decisions about high school. You know, it's starting early. It is troublesome, but again, you know, with my own kids, as I spoke before, when we were traveling different places, there were schools they might be interested. We stopped. You know, as they get older, and again, the recruiting process again, he kind of gave you the schedule of Division I now. We're not that far behind. And you know, I mean, I'm sure Mark's the same way in terms of Division III. I mean, we've had a ton of 2015s already visit campus. Now we're trying to schedule them for official visits. You know, come up, just come for the day. If they want to come overnight, that's on their expense. You know, I mean, usually on a visit you're talking about for your sons, you know, they're probably not going to go to class as a 218, you know what I mean? It's just initial stuff. So I'm not sure if I answered the question or not about that.
I guess as a parent of a kid at that age, you know, as you guys as coaches, are y'all open to getting information from young players at that age that, you know, play at a high level?
Well, I think, again, you guys can speak for yourself, but I think it depends on the coach. I mean, to be honest with you, you know, our school's Division I hockey, and I look at some of the kids they bring on campus, and it's like, wow, those guys are a lot better at predicting what may happen in the future than I am. I mean, but if this kid's a freshman, by the time he's a junior, maybe he's not even playing soccer anymore. He likes something else, he met a girl, I mean, you know, million notice I had to put the met the girl in. But. So, I mean, if it's at my camp, and I think, wow, this kid is going to be good, I'm going to put him in a database and just kind of follow up when I can on him. But, you know, to actively recruit a freshman would be really tough for me.
Well, you know, I think part of us, that's kind of why we come to this, is to hopefully get out there and see what else is out there that you're playing against.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Like, you don't know how many other age kids are here doing that same kind of stuff.
No, I think it's good in terms of that.
My sense is that men's soccer is later than other sports. For example, at UMass, we have a very good men's lacrosse team. They're at least a year to a year and a half ahead of us. Now, I should say that they don't like it, and they're only doing it because competition dictates that they have to. And as they've gone earlier and earlier, they're making a lot more mistakes. The coaching staff is making a lot more mistakes in terms of IDing. You know, just like we said, when kids are ninth grader, they have a ton of development personally, athletically, the whole gamut. It's hard to know what you're getting, but it's also critically, or it's so difficult for the young kids to know. I mean, I can't even imagine what I would have thought as a freshman. I didn't even know as a senior really what I wanted to do, you know? And so mistakes are being made as it gets earlier and earlier on both sides, and I think it's unfortunate. And quite honestly, we as coaches have to take a blame, you know, a big share of the blame there. But soccer, you know, that's the first one that I've heard about commitments going out to freshmen. I've heard it in other sports. Certainly on the women's side, they're even a year to 2 years ahead of us. But on the men's side, you know, the time frame that I told you about, probably 40% of the 2015s, you know, that we're talking to have made decisions.
Yeah, and you know, I'll add maybe an interesting one in there, very briefly. This may sound like a strange statement for two reasons. It's my camp, and so my son could go to this camp for free. He's a freshman, he's not here. And now, to answer maybe why, I can tell you right now he's not a Division I soccer player. And so for me, I'm just like, you know, he's not a D1 guy. And in terms of the educational side, where you know, him to start to kind of get educated by being around college coaches and all that, I'm his dad. He's around it all the time. And so my calculation at that point was, I just want him to be a kid that's a freshman in high school enjoying life. And so, so we just told him at the end of the day, say, Dad, do you think I should come? I'm like, you know what? Do you really want to go? If you want to go, cool. We'll hook you up. You know some other guys that are freshmen. We'll get you in with them. You can play on the team, have fun. And you know what? He just didn't seem that into it. So he said, I just said, dude, don't bother. It's all good. Enjoy life. So, yes, right here.
I have a question. You're spending a lot of time on those couple of recruits that you give scholarships to or whatever, but for the rest of the kids that maybe are strong academic kids that want to play soccer, but may not be the D1 player, but
Sure.
maybe in between a D1, D2, what about those kids and how do we get them hooked up? I have a junior and I'm beginning to panic thinking I'm too late, but we've narrowed it down to 5 schools. We've made contact with the coaches. A couple of them are here. We've alerted them to that. And what do you do beyond that?
Well, let me maybe give you kind of a general answer. Yeah. Okay. We may try to wrap things a little bit. Jim just let me know that what happened is there's a tree that's fallen down on electrical wires. So this could be out for a little bit. So we'll answer a few more questions that we may need to wrap up. So I'm gonna maybe pivot on that question. I'm gonna try to answer it, but I'm gonna maybe try to answer it a little bit more broadly because it's one of the things that we're gonna have. We're gonna talk with kids about at a couple of the nighttime seminars, and that quite simply is go where you're wanted. Okay, and I think that sometimes what happens is it sounds cool. It's a peer pressure thing. It is what it is. I say it to kids all the time when I'm advising kids on college choices. When you've got your buddies and everybody thinks it's the cool thing to say, I'm going to this school, that school, or that school. That's not necessarily a Division 1, 2, or 3 thing. It's not my point. But it's what seems like the coolest school to be able to say that I'm going to. Well, at some point in time, you're going to end up being there. You're not going to be with your buddies. And was it a great choice for you, or was it not? And so, the choice on college is broad. It's obviously not just soccer. I would argue that it should be the first thing that a person considers. I really think it is.
Right, that's my point.
And so, once you turn around and know the different criteria, potential major, big school, small school, distance from home, public, private, and you start to narrow some of that down, and now you have possible colleges that are interested. At that point, my thing always is, go where you're wanted. There's a lot of people, I think, that turn around and say, well, maybe I can be that guy that walks on. And again, when I say walk on, that can be a D3 walk on. It can be a D2 walk on. That can be a D1 walk on. Are you wanted or are you not wanted? Is the coach actively recruiting you? Is he giving you some kind of idea? Most coaches aren't going to turn around and say, sure, you're going to come to start as a freshman. But they may be able to give you some kind of an idea as to why they like you, how they think they may be able to do well, how you might fit in to their program. Are you wanted or are you not wanted? If you're not wanted, and I mean, legitimate interest, don't go there. Pick one of those other schools. There's a lot of good schools out there. Yes, right. Back there. Yeah.
In regards to the NCAA guidelines and IB camps and all the regulatory open enrollment and early decision, when you're looking at your incoming recruiting class, let's say 2015, at what point in time will you have, let's say, 80% of your roster already decided in regards to time frames that parents and kids are looking towards actively pursuing a college of their choices?
I'm going to, in the interest of trying to get through a few of these questions, I'm going to hit this one too. Again, not trying to be rude, I just know that we've got darkness in here, and I don't know, maybe the sun's shining outside, I don't know. But that one, the general answer on that is it just depends on the college. So you have some colleges that are early decision, and they may be early decision 1, and that might be in October. It could be earlier than that. It could be in November. They could have an early decision that's in December or January. You've got colleges that are enrolling admissions, which means they still may be enrolling people in April, May. They could even be enrolling people in June for their upcoming school year. So it really just depends on the college and to some extent division, that kind of stuff as well.